Jonathan Callaghan lecture series, and today's topic is custodial torture on deaths, discussion on Sattankulam issue through the human rights view. Now, before going into the session, I'd like all the participants to mute their audio, and in the end of the session, there'll be a feedback form which you have to fill in, and once the number of participants is filled, it will start be streaming on YouTube. And there's a separate survey done, and I'd like everyone to be a part of it. And for today's session, our guest speaker, Mr. Henri Patrick Tiphagne, Mr. Advocate, Executive Director of People's Watch. And sir, I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
And before going into the session, we'll start with a video.
Close it.
Duty that night. On my way, I was stopped around 8 p.m. for a routine police check. I showed my ID to the concerned officer, ACP Ganesh. I told him that I'm on duty, please let me go, and these are my ID cards. So he first snatched my card and then my phone. So I asked him, sir, what are you doing? What made him do that? He slapped, and then I was shocked. I asked him, how dare you slap me, and where is the woman cop accompanying you? He got mad and he started abusing me and hitting me with lathi. I revolted back and shouted on top of my lungs saying, I'm on duty, I'm a doctor. Then he dragged me by my hair to the station where he verbally abused me. He made me sit on the ground in the station like a culprit. I can't say what he said.
Of police brutality on screen influence us in real life. Now you may say that in films like Darbar, the police is only taking the law into its own hands to kill people like rapists, drug dealers and others. So, what's the problem? 2015 Visaranai அப்படினு ஒரு படம் வந்தது. It was based on the real life story of M. Chandrakumar, who was arrested by the police because they needed to nab someone for a theft case. He and a few others were tortured in police custody and made to confess to a crime that they did not commit. In real life, if we leave it to the police to decide who's a rapist and who's a drug dealer in their darbar, who do you think will be affected? Will it be actual criminals with power and privilege or those without it? யார் வாழ்க்கை சும்மா கிழிக்க முடியுமோ அவங்க தாங்க சாக போறாங்க. ஆனா இது நிஜ வாழ்க்கை இல்ல, சினிமா அப்படின்னு தானே சொல்ல வரீங்க? But then, cinema is a powerful medium which can normalize some very problematic ideas. take our response to the news that the Telangana police had shot dead the accused in the Hyderabad vet gang rape case in an encounter. The police action came after immense public anger, and the news that the accused had been shot dead was applauded by a lot of people, including politicians and celebrities. The Telangana police turned into heroes immediately after the encounter, and in the process, we let them off the hook for not filing a zero FIR when the family first went to them. We forgot that they had insinuated that the vet must have eloped with someone and that they had refused to look for her. We forgot that the police did not prove the case in court to assure the public that they had indeed caught the right people. We were happy with the filmy ending that the police gave us. காவல்துறை நமது நண்பர் இல்ல அப்படின்னு சொல்ல வரல, ஆனா எப்போதும் அப்படி இருக்கிறது இல்ல. அதனால தான் பாப் கட் வச்சிருக்கிற ஹியூமன் ரைட்ஸ் ஆக்டிவிஸ்ட் நமக்கு தேவைப்படுது.
The Human Rights Court has stated that torture is deliberate, inhuman treatment causing very serious and cruel suffering. It attaches to such treatment a special stigma. Similarly, Article 1 of the UN Convention Against Torture defines torture as the intentional infliction of severe pain or suffering for a specific purpose, such as obtaining information or punishment by or with the consent of the state authorities. This is not just one case, but last year, 1,731 people died in police or judicial custody, which translates into almost 5 deaths per day. Almost 75% of those who died in police custody had been tortured. The details of the methods used are not pretty read. Nails were hammered into them, chili powder applied on the private parts. They were branded, stripped, urinated upon, violated with batons and more. 5 custodial deaths a day, more than 1,500 deaths a year, and it barely raised a ripple in a consciousness. But gladly, Sattankulam had a voice. Justice for Jairaj and Benix broke walls. This is just a brief of what happened in Sattankulam. On June 19th, Father Jairaj and son, who owned a mobile shop, were arrested for not following the rules of curfew. They were remanded in judicial custody and lodged in jail on 21st. 22nd, they were taken to Kovilpatti Government Hospital, where Benix died late that day, and his father on the wee hours of June 23rd. June 26th, the Madurai bench of Madras High Court came forward and almost a week later told the CBCID to take over. On July 2nd, after investigations of the CBCID, 5 police personnel, including of Inspector Sridhar and 2 sub-inspectors, have been arrested. And now investigations have been going on. And recently they have been shifted to a jail in Madurai. This is the overview of the situation in Sattankulam. And now I call upon our beloved HOD, Dr. Miriam Samuel, to address the gathering. Ma'am? Okay, due to some technical issues, ma'am is not being able to address the participants. Now let's forward to Dr. Prince Solomon, who will give a brief view of our speaker today and how he has worked so far.
I'm glad to introduce Mr. Henri Tiphagne, the Executive Director of People's Watch. His education starts from botany and then moved on to sociology. And then he did bachelor's in law. So he's a advocate and a practitioner. So his expertise is on civil liberties, human rights, and social activism. His experience spans about 36 years. At present, he is a National Working Secretary of the Human Rights Defenders Alert, National Working Secretary of All India Network of NGOs and individuals working for national and state human rights institutions called ANI, National Convener of Working Group on Human Rights in India and the UN. In the international scenario, he is well known. He is in the executive committee member of CMCT, Human Rights Education. At present, he is a chairperson of the International Dalit Solidarity Network. His initiatives, I think that is something telling on human rights education, training programs, and to top it, probably the icing on the cake for today is that he is one of the person who initiated the Rehabilitation Center for Torture Victims. I think that is so real and so crucial for us at this juncture to understand about the topic that we're going to discuss today. He also works very closely with the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights, and he is a very close friend of the Department of Social Work, Madras Christian College. Right from 2000, the Department of Social Work organized a series of human rights conferences, and he was one of the keynote speaker of the first conferences which was inaugurated by Justice Krishna Iyer in the year 2000. And again, he has come several times to the department, and we have met in different forums. I think we are honored to have you here, sir, in this forum. And we'll be very happy to have you. And I'm sure that this day's discussion is going to be very, very vital in the young minds and the minds who are going to listen to you, Olga. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Without further ado, I now handle the session to our speaker.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, friends. It's always a pleasure to be in the midst of anybody from Madras Christian. And therefore, in true Madras Christian culture, I said, let me have some greenery around me. I cannot match the greenery of your campus. I cannot match your campus hospitality, but I will always remember your campus and my visits to your campus. It was a pleasure. I first want to wish and thank Dr. Miriam, your head of the department, whom I've always revered for her passion to the training of social workers of this country through your institution. Dr. Prince, with whom I've enjoyed a long association. I recalled the same 2000, you call that study sessions, national study sessions, if I remember right. And good friend Sudarshan, who's there. Sudarshan, who recalls his, I'm happy that he recalls his internship with us, a 2-month internship with us. Those days, it was a very passionate internship. It was almost a summer course because they were never alone. They were with a number of students, boys and girls, living in a separate house and working till late in the night. Internships are not 10 to 6 with People's Watch, but these are lifelong relationships. And I think that is what matters. And therefore, it is a great pleasure for me to be in your midst today. The topic, of course, is not a matter of great joy for all of us. And I want to congratulate your department for that short video that you put, reminding all of us and reminding me that the focus has to be on the issue of torture. Well, the figures have been already listed out. But let us not forget, these are figures taken from the National Crime Records Bureau. And the material to the Crime Records Bureau is given by the state police. Going to show, so if they can hide, they would have hidden. And the rest are the figures on the basis of which you and I are today speaking about or referring to. Just give me 1 second. Cynthia? 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 My internet is creating a problem. Just give me a second, please. I'm calling out to you. Okay, it's done. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There was some sudden internet change, so I had to make sure that the best connection was made available. So the NCRB details, the data that we have, is therefore not complete and therefore not authentic. The data that we have from the National Human Rights Commission is the alternative. And these are on the basis of complaints received by the NHRC and not otherwise. And if people refer no cases to the NHRC, and if people hesitate to refer cases to the NHRC, then those cases are not going to figure within the figures of torture that we are referring to in our data. Therefore, friends, these figures of 5 cases of torture a year will not last. I was engaged in the year 2006 to 2008, 36 months working in 47 districts covering 9 states of this country. I'm happy I'm alive after successfully completing that program, which was a national project on preventing torture in India. And with the data that we generated from 47 districts across the country, our projection to the 600 and odd police stations in the country was that there are 1.8 million cases of torture a year in this country, which fall within the ambit of the United Nations Convention Against Torture, which unfortunately our country signed in the year 1997, but has not ratified it 23 years thereafter, in spite of the Universal Periodic Review assurance to all states of the United Nations in the year 2008, in the year 2012, and repeating itself in the year 2012, 2008, 12, and 16. So we are in a country which promises the world that our constitution, which is true, under Article 21 bans torture. Our Supreme Court, through its various verdicts, have shown that torture has no place in India. Our high courts have followed that. But we hesitate to come with a domestic law that condemns torture, that makes torture a crime, and we simply refuse to ratify a convention we signed 23 years ago. And torture is defined, my dear friends, as pain and suffering, physical and psychological, which is intentionally caused by a government servant with the purpose of securing information or a confession or punishing a person, and it goes on. So everywhere where a pain and suffering is caused by a public servant, which is intentional in nature, even if it is caused for getting information or obtaining a confession or punishing somebody, that amounts to torture. And the first aspect of this lecture for me is, let us today resolve, we will not use the word police excesses, henceforth at least. We will call them by the legal word that they are supposed to be addressed by, which is torture. Torture is a legal term, and let us use the legal term. And I know hundreds of social work students and social workers are watching this lecture. And to all of you, I want to tell you that that victim, that small little person, that person whose names is always not known, whose names we refuse to remember, who are in the confines of their homes after suffering all this pain and suffering that falls within this definition. To them, the definition is not important. To them, the law on torture is not important. To them, a lawyer like me is not important. To them, a social worker like you, who's willing to hold the hands of the victims and strengthen them and tell them that you are with them, is what they need, and that is what they never get. Friends, there are many people who praise me for what I am. And I owe it. I owe all that to the thousands of victims who have allowed me, in almost 35 years of my being active, to hold their hands, use the law and make mistakes, but never lost control of their hands, and continued to convey the warmth in me to them, telling them that it is important for them to continue the fight. All forms of torture that you see in the police stations, my dear friends, not only those that you're going to get into in the Sattankulam case, all forms of torture, unfortunately, I have seen with my own eyes through the victims who have narrated them to us all the past 35 years, but in particular, through the victims of the Special Task Force violence in the border areas of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, bluffing us all that they were gunning for Veerappan. Whether they got Veerappan, nobody caught Veerappan. They killed Veerappan. That was also a case of a police action. They killed somebody who was peaceful. And that is why today we have our good friend Vijay Kumar, who is my contemporary in St. Joseph's College. My good friend Vijay Kumar, who is now advising the government and the Ministry of Home Affairs. He should have been in bars, behind bars, for killing, mastermind killing of Veerappan. Unfortunately, there was not a single politician who came forward to say that. And this passion in me has been built, engineered, sustained by a source of hundreds and hundreds of victims who have every time taught me that what they required was our hand. And therefore, social workers, please don't get caught that this is a legal matter. This is a matter for social workers. This is a matter for sociologists. This is a matter for psychologists. This is a matter for counselors. This is a matter for psychiatrists to get engaged, because the relief and long-term rehabilitation of all these people who are victims of police torture, the millions that we are talking about, has to be carried out by each one of you. Let me now make it very clear that we will proceed under 7 heads. I've got 40 minutes that I'm told, and I will try to ensure that I keep to time. I will get into the facts, that is number 1. I will point out the negligence that has taken place as number 2. The negligence in maintaining standards. The third will be, of course, the legal interventions that had to be carried out in this case. The fourth is the building of a people's movement and platform that results from Sattankulam, which is a sign of hope. And number 5 is what needs to be done by the government now. And number 6, and 6 is the last, is what you should do. What is there for you to do? Because everybody is concerned about that question. What do you want me to do? I'm happy you're doing something. What do you want me to do? And I think the 6th question is important. Now, the facts of the case in Sattankulam is very clear. But before we enter into the Sattankulam case, let us understand that there is a total climate of impunity. And in Tamil, it is said very clearly. English, the meaning is usually mixed up with immunity. In Tamil, it is Thandanai Maruppu. And I've got the best translator telling me this word. I'm not too good in my Tamil. Thiagu is a translator for Justice V.R. Krishna here. So you can imagine his capacity in translation. Dandanai Maruppu. And I'm saying there is a culture of Dandanai Maruppu, impunity, in the entire district of Thoothukudi. And that is important for people to understand. Now, immediate question will be, does it not exist all over Tamil Nadu? Of course it does. Of course it exists. But the level of impunity in Thoothukudi, especially after 22nd of May 2018, is very, very high. And that is something that we should never forget. And where does it stem from? Stems from the fact that people are laughing about the rule of law in this country and the institutions that are meant to deliver justice in this country. They're laughing that 16 people could die. Most of them, due to brutal police action. And in spite of brutal police action, we are able to see that no action has followed. The CBI has been investigating this case till it was entrusted with it on the 14th of August 2018. They were given 4 months to complete the investigation. And now it is more than 1 year and 6 months, and we are yet to hear from them. That is the CBI. The government of Tamil Nadu, the Chief Minister came on record and said, I have appointed Justice Aruna Jagadishan, a very nice person. We are not bothered about people. But that nice person has not delivered justice. Of course, another 4 months, she has this excuse of the lockdown. The lockdown did not prevent us from intervening in Sattankulam. Forget it. Could any of us sat down in our homes and said Sattankulam lockdown? So let Jayaraj and Benix wait. Your quest for justice would have allowed you to go to use technology to be able to continue your investigation. You did not do that. And with the number of witnesses you still have, Justice Aruna Jagadishan, you will continue for 2 more years. I give it in writing, 2 more years. No CBI, no Justice Aruna Jagadishan, and this institution of a white elephant called National Human Rights Commission, headed by Justice Dattu, takes suo notice of this case, consciously keeps my complaint till date not brought into that case. I was in ground zero. I was right there in Tuticorin on the road leading to the collector's office. It is from there that I was tweeting. It is from there that I was gathering information. And my team members were there right opposite, taking all the photographs. But still, NHRC doesn't believe in authentic reports from authentic human rights defenders. But NHRC believes EPS and his government. And the reply they gave them in September 2018. And promptly on the 19th of October 2018, the NHRC closed this complaint. You can understand what impunity means in Tuticorin. It is in this climate of heightened impunity in Tuticorin district. All the policemen being assured that you do whatever you want, nothing will happen to you. That you have the young lad, that is how everybody addresses him. So let me also use the same terminology. This is young lad, this young boy, Arul Balagopan, IPS, who was appointed there. Why the hell did you appoint a young boy, a lad with no experience into Tuticorin? You knew he had no job to be done there, because whatever the police did, nothing will happen. It is in this climate that we have to look at Sattankulam, my dear friends. I am brutal, but I have to be brutally honest today. Otherwise, the young folks listening to me will throw me off as one more bluff. Because there are too many bluffs in this country. First fact, the facts. There are 2 versions of the cause of the incident of the 19th. And I want to place both the facts, which usually nobody does. And I want to honestly place this to you. The first version is the attempts of Sub-Inspector Balakrishnan to procure some computer related or mobile related, or a mobile itself, purchase it on an EMI that Jayaraj refused. So there was an enmity, is cause 1. And this is becoming very popular. But the one which is unpopular and which most probably is closer to the truth is the fact that Jayaraj, on the night of the 18th, when Balakrishnan and his team, when Jayaraj had closed the shop, gone home, and was actually returning back to buy something for his family. When he was walking along the shops and seeing these policemen in their typical style with their sticks, batons, telling the shopkeepers that their shops had to be closed, mumbled something to the shopkeepers. Because Jayaraj is a person of that sort. And it seems Jayaraj also referred to the caste of Sub-Inspector Balakrishnan, who happens to be a member of the scheduled caste community. This was not heard by Balakrishnan, but these words are clearly heard by Gundas Bala. Gundas Bala is the head constable of police station, who was actually where Gundas Bala information made against Balakrishnan, referring to his caste. And therefore, on the 19th evening, the operation took place. The Operation Sattankulam took place. And this Operation Sattankulam is very clearly the fact that they came with an intention, and the intention was very clear, either because or if it was not the EMI that was refused earlier, then of course, then it was the case of the caste reference that had been made. But in any case, there was an intention. And with this intention, they were taken to the police station. The father was taken to the police station. The son followed. And thereafter, everyone in Tamil Nadu knows what happened. There was brutal torture that took place in the police station. Is it to receive any news? No. Any information? No. Any confession? No. It was to teach Jairaj a lesson for his life, that he cannot be disrespectful to policemen, whoever they are. And this was done. The son enters the police station in the night. Immediately, the son is also dragged in. They said, okay, we are waiting for you. Father and son, take it. And this is done in the complete station. There are lawyers who have tried to enter the police station in the night. They were told to get out. The doors were closed, and the torture continued. Late in the night, the so-called youngsters, volunteers, friends of the police, you name them, you call them whatever you want, who are gangsters, criminals, who have been indulging in such activities in the past as well. This is their contribution during Corona time to helping the police. Come, they take the baton in their hands, and under supervision of the police officers, they beat, because even to beat people, you need to be strong. And then the forms of torture, against the wall, jamming their private parts, hitting them on their private parts, hitting them on their buttocks, inserting an iron rod into their anal opening and causing all the internal injuries that is possible in the process, beating all over the body on the back, allowing them to scream continued the whole night. These are, but for always also that the family, and this is going to be painful to an audience of Madras Christian College, the family, being a Christian family, called out to their pastor. I'm told the pastor is somebody who has done some studies in law. The pastor immediately called upon the bishop of Tuticorin. We don't know. What is not known is the interventions that they did. We all would like to believe that they did something. And had they done something that night, they would have saved 2 members of their church. And the fact that there were no intervention shows that the church did not interfere. And I'm going to be brutal. This diocese of CSI is culpable because it had no sources of funding. And its only source of funding for its hospital in Sayarpuram, if I remember right, was from the corporate social responsibility funds drawn from none other than Sterlite. Imagine a church receiving funds from Sterlite, corporate social responsibility funds, for buying equipments for its hospital. This is the level to which our churches are stepping down. Shame on them. Here were 2 members of your church who could have been saved. And today the bishop came to conduct the funeral. What did your conscience tell you, bishop, when you conducted the funeral service? These are questions that have to now be raised publicly. And when I speak in a Christian college, it's my duty to do so. We all have a duty in society. And we all have a model before us. And that is Jesus Christ and his crucifixion. and his life. And if you want to be anywhere close to him, which is very, very difficult for me, the minimum that is required is when your member of the church is in a police station, to speak out. Let me recall to you that Jnana Prakasam, who was on the death row in the Veerappan case, death row, that old Jnana Prakasam was working in the priest quarters in Martali, in the border area in Karnataka. And when the STF police called Jnana Prakasam to the police station, and the priest who was in charge of that Martali Roman Catholic Church told him to go, and Jnana Prakasam was taken into custody, and next day the father goes and asks, where is Jnana Prakasam? They said Jnana Prakasam has been taken in judicial custody. That father never forgave himself for the fact that he allowed him to go to the police station. When we had a conference against death penalty, when the death penalty was against Jnana Prakasam and he was still in jail, nobody allowed us to have the conference with thousands of people coming anywhere in that area. And that father, I forget his name, said, Henry, please come here. That conference has to be held in this church compound. This is the only way I can forgive myself for having handed over Jnana Prakasam, or allowed Jnana Prakasam, or instructed Jnana Prakasam, or advised Jnana Prakasam to go to the police, STF, who said they wanted to inquire him and then leave him. And then took him, falsely implicated him, got him convicted, and he was on the death row. Today the death row is not there, but he is still in prison. That is the role of a priest who feels for what has happened. So these people were there in the police station, and the first information report that was registered said, completely contrary, that both these people refused to come to the police, and they were rolling on the ground. Imagine, you've seen the faces and you've seen the body. Even if they had said Benix had abused the police there and beaten the police, people would believe because he's a well-built boy. But just imagine that you say in your FIR, our urandu perandargal, perandadin karanamaga, because they rolled on the ground, kayangal erpattana, to justify the injuries on the body. So their case is that there were injuries on the body when they came to the police station. Their case is that there was no infliction of any form of torture on them while they were in custody. The next day they go for medical examination, which is the procedure established under law. We'll come to it later. There is a lovely medical doctor, a young Dr. Vanilla, who keeps them in the hospital of Sattankulam for almost 3 hours, then gives them a medical fitness certificate. Then they go to his honor, Mr. Saravanan, the judicial magistrate of Sattankulam, who still, unfortunately, continues to be the Sattankulam magistrate. And I hope not for too long. He, in his judicial discretion, acts, and without seeing anybody, because that is the trust he has, signs the papers for their remand. They are taken to judicial remand. The jailer, with all those injuries marked, receives a call from his jail superintendent and therefore admits them in jail. With all these injuries, a doctor, one Vijay Kumar, visits the hospital, visits the jail and treats them. And nothing happens till on 22nd night. There is some complaint from Benix. He is rushed to the hospital and within half an hour dies. And the father, within 2 hours of his death, again is found to have high fever. Without this information being passed on to him, he is rushed to the hospital where he dies in the early hours of the 23rd. These are the facts of the case. Friends, what's the negligence? Part 2 of this sharing. The police have indulged in torture. There's no doubt about it. The inspector has been present, physically present. Sub-inspectors were present, constables were present. People who don't belong to the police, and we now name them in different ways, but I don't want to get into that controversy at all. They call themselves volunteers, they call themselves friends of police, they call themselves by other names, Seva Bharati, whoever they are. Under law, they had no business to be in the police station. They had no business to take the lathi in their hands, and they had no business to beat. All those are part of the act which led to the death of these two people. But now what is kept in hiding is the fact that this place had a deputy superintendent of police called Prathapan. And this Prathapan is seen in various videographs near the Kamaraj statue in Sattankulam, assuring the public with his hands up like this that Jairaj and Benix are alive, that nothing is happening, and he will take the responsibility for producing them both to the public the next day. These are friends of Benix who are appealing, and they're in passion, they're angry. He tells them, video edunga, onnu prachana illa, take a video if you want. That's what he says. Now, had he seen, there can be only two versions. One, that he had already gone to the police station and he knows that there was no torture, and therefore gives an assurance. Remember, all the while he's a superior police officer. Or because of what he heard outside, he then should have gone to the police station to verify with what he heard outside was true or not. And if he had then seen torture or the effects of the torture that had already been carried out, the first thing he should have done is to ensure that these two persons were rushed to the hospital for first aid. By not doing that, he has not done his duty. Otherwise, he has been negligent in allowing his subordinate officers to commit a violation of human rights. And therefore, he is also fully culpable, and he is part, and if he has kept quiet, he is party to the conspiracy that led to the murder of these two people later, to the death of these two people later. The doctor wants to give a certificate clearly saying that she cannot send these people for remand. She is pressured by her boss. She keeps them for 3 hours there. The 3 hours indicate the time that it took to convince Vanilla what she had to do. The pressures brought about who spoke to her boss will now come out of the investigation. Did the inspector speak? Who spoke to her boss? Who's also another woman doctor. And then she gives a certificate ensuring that the BP of both Jairaj and Phoenix are brought down. That certificate, together with the remand report, together with the first information report, are then carried with the two accused in a vehicle to the court. It is a Saturday. The magistrate remands both the accused. There are two versions. The first version is And this is actually what took place. But Saravanan is a magistrate who is completely different from the judicial magistrates of our state. So he doesn't believe in following the criminal procedure code or the criminal rules of practice. And therefore, he will sign on every paper that is provided by the police to him. What the police give him back in return is not the subject matter of our debate today. You understand what I'm saying? And that is shameful, because our subordinate judiciary in Tamil Nadu today is far, 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 far better than what we have in the entire country. And if I say so, please take it. Because we, from the human rights movement, have seen that most of them, judicial magistrates who have assumed office in the last 10 years or so, are people of very good intellectual caliber, honesty, knowledge of law, and therefore do not wish to get into any controversy except interpreting and acting as per the mandates of law. And that is what is expected of a judicial magistrate. And this is an exception, truly an exception, but the exceptions needs to be thrown out from the subordinate judiciary. Thrown out. The law expects that the judicial magistrate, this person is produced before the judicial magistrate. Now, this man signs the FAR. When he initials the FAR, he reads the FAR. When he reads the FAR, he needs the FAR stating that these people rolled on the ground and had sustained injuries. And if that is so, where are the injuries? He has to see how serious the injuries are. He never did that. If he looked at the medical report, he would have seen injuries if the injuries were marked. Then he had to ascertain whether they are fit enough to go for police remand, to a judicial remand, to a jail. He did not see them. He signed the papers. According to the criminal rules of practice amended in the year 2019, he is supposed to tell these two people and hand over a copy of the remand report to them, memorandum of remand to them, and also ask them whether they had a lawyer of their own choice to move bail for them. Since this was brought to his notice later, he said, since the documents were in his custody, he has now, I'm sure, tampered it to show that he is supposed to have seen these people in video conferencing. I'm sure the police who are going to investigate this case will also have to go and investigate the judicial magistrate. And if it is not the police, Magistrate Bharatidasan, who is conducting the inquiry, will have to inquire Mr. Saravanan. Definitely. Without meeting him, he cannot complete the inquiry. And then they are taken to the jail, 120 kilometers away, in a private vehicle, not even in an official vehicle. They knew that in any official vehicle, it will be very difficult. There will be blood stains. They engage a private vehicle. They ask the party to pay for the private vehicle. You can find out all this. All this is coming in the investigation. And at the entrance of the jail, they are kept waiting because the jailer refuses to take them in. The jailer receives a call from his jail superintendent. And the jail superintendent's intervention, the admission is made. They are inside, and then you know how the death occurred. So there is negligence of the doctors, there is negligence, utter negligence of the judicial magistrate and the sub-jail superintendent, which has ultimately also contributed in leading to the death. Even if they have not party to the entire conspiracy, at least they are definitely party to a lot of suppression of evidence, and therefore several sections of the IPC will be attracted to the offenses they are party to. Now, the legal interventions that followed thereafter were that the family arranged for a lawyer to move the Madras, Madurai bench of the Madras High Court on 23rd morning. A very swift action, as a result of which one of the honorable judges directed that the post-mortem should be videographed. And it was kept, it was videographed. A team of doctors came and did it. But on the 24th, there was a suo motu cognizance of this case as a PIL by the division bench in Madurai, as a result of which the entire case came to the division bench in Madurai. And the other case, which was before the single judge, also got tagged on. The judges in their wisdom did not allow anybody to intervene. The judges did not require any amicus curiae, anybody to assist the court. And on the 24th asked for the post-mortem report and the report of the magistrate. Just the judge, Bharati Dasan from Koilpatti was asked to conduct the procedure and inquiry that is done when somebody dies in custody. These are usually registered as suspicious deaths, and therefore there is an inquiry. Earlier it used to be done by the RDOs. Now the law has been amended. When there is a death in custody or a rape takes place in custody, it has to be a mandatory inquiry conducted by a judicial magistrate. This was on the 24th. 26th, the state did not come with the post-mortem report. Had they come with a post-mortem report that day, the whole process would have started that day. The state was very sure that they wanted to delay the post-mortem report as far as possible. 26th went. 27th and 28th weekend. By 29th morning, the government of Tamil Nadu started saying, CBI, we are handing it over to the CBI. It was announced on Sunday. Monday, the case was posted on Tuesday, but on Monday itself, the government's counsel came and made a representation to the court. The court said fine. And then the court, in its wisdom, also heard that there were some difficulties and therefore mentioned that till the CBI comes, the CBCID will carry on the investigation. And they had only signed the order when they got a further report from the judicial magistrate who was carrying on the procedural inquiry of what happened to him when he went to the police station for inquiry. Imagine a senior judicial magistrate entering for inquiry. The whole of the world is watching. The High Court is watching the case. The DSP Prathapan, whom I mentioned earlier, is sitting in the seat with the additional SP. They never get up when the magistrate enters the police station. No sign of respect. And from there, through their body language, they communicate to the policemen not to cooperate. This was the role of two senior police officers of the rank of additional SP and the DSP. Emboldened by the physical presence of these two police officers there, under this climate of impunity of Tuticorin that I spoke to you, when policemen were asked by this magistrate to give statement, they ran away from the police station, is what he writes in a written complaint to the registrar of the Madras High Court. They get furious. The judges, it is at that stage they get furious, and it is that stage by mail they also get the post-mortem report. So with the post-mortem report in their hands and this complaint of the magistrate, then go the series of orders for CBCID. The case is posted on the 29th, the 30th, the 2nd. By then the CBI start investigating and the arrest of the accused take place. And then the altering of the FIR from 174 to 302, which we were demanding from day one. I was demanding. Every channel I was there. All the movements were demanding the same thing. The FIR got altered, and you all know what has been taking place. Now, friends, when such cases of custodial torture, brutal take place, it's very important to also simultaneously take the matter to the streets of this country. Well, we could not go to the streets because of Corona, but we said we will use our strength. And on the 28th, we jointly organized a meeting of all political parties in the state. Every political party, excepting the ruling center and ruling state party, were invited. Almost all of them came. All political movements, all human rights movements, all Tamil nationalist movements, all the communist parties, all the Dalit parties, all the Muslim parties, persons with disabilities. You name them, they were all there. And unitedly we condemned. But while we condemned, we also said, and we had all met just 15 days before that to commemorate what had happened to George Floyd in the US. And we said, therefore, we will create a joint platform. And that is the fourth part, that we created a joint platform known as Joint Action Against Custodial Torture in Tamil Nadu, JACT, Tamil Nadu. The objective of the joint action is to ensure that we campaign against torture, that we take up cases of torture in all the districts, and that we campaign and ensure that we have a standalone law against torture in this country. What needs to be done? Many things need to be done. The Supreme Court order in Prakash Singh's case of 2006 needs to be followed in spirit in the state. We don't want your 2013 Police Reforms Act. Throw it in the Bay of Bengal if you want. It comes nowhere close to what the Supreme Court had mandated you to do. For the sake of time, I'm not getting into what the mandate was, but perhaps leave it to the to questions that could come in that regard. And we ask now what needs to be done. We ask for a completely new police act for the state. We don't want us to be governed by an 1861 pre-independence act, colonial act. You are the people who are saying we need a recent act. We need community policing. We need democratic policing. You cannot have democratic policing with an act of 1861. Create a new act. Debate with the citizens of the state. Police act has to come. It is your duty. You have no responsibility to throw it to the government of India. Come out with a new act and bring your friends of police if you want into the new act. But don't tell us stories. Don't tell us stories. You have not done what the Supreme Court mandated you to do. You have done one thing that the Supreme Court told you. Only one thing, and that is to give a tenure of 2 long years to whoever is selected as a DGP. And that you have done and ensured that Rajendran got his 2 + 2 years of DGP, and now Tripathi got his term as DGP. Mr. Tripathi, this is not enough, is what we say. Tripathi is a good friend, by the way. Mr. Tripathi was in Madurai in the year 1998 as Superintendent of Police of Madurai Rural, when he masterminded the cover-up of another custodial death of Guru Ayya in Madurai Rural Police Station. We took up the case. And the wife, the widowed Ankamal, is still alive. And the 3 sons were educated. One dropped out and went to farming to help his mother. The eldest Malichami is today a lawyer in Gudalur, a trained lawyer in Gudalur working with a human rights organization. You remember our forest minister, whatever his name is, from Dindigal, Srinivasan, and his recent episode in Gudalur. It was Malachami who mustered the tribal people and their associations against the Minister Srinivasan, Dindigal Srinivasan. the son of Angamal. His father was killed in custody. The boy witnessed the trial. The boy was studying 8th standard then. The trial took place when he had completed his law. The judge who acquitted the case, acquitted the policeman, is now a sitting judge of the Madras High Court. The judge who acquitted the case in the first appeal is now a practicing senior advocate in the Supreme Court. That is a long journey one has to pass. So Tirupati knows us very well. And Tirupati knows what he did on that occasion, and I know what he did on that occasion. That is for our private knowledge. So what is required today is definitely that we need in Tamil Nadu a new police act and 100% adherence to the 2006 demands, recommendations of the Supreme Court. Don't tell me you have CCTV cameras in all the police stations. If you had CCTV cameras in all the police stations, we would receive in RTI petitions that are filed copies of the CCTV footage. Never given to us. I filed in this case. I've now got a response. The matter is being investigated and therefore we cannot give it to you. We want the government to assure us that all basic documents, including the post-mortem report, the video tape of the post-mortem report, the CCTV footage of the police station or the location where the injury, where the alleged attack took place, the inquest report, all documentation are provided to the victim's family, one copy on your own. What is this new jurisprudence? How can I fight my right to life with all the information in your hands? This is what needs to be done. And the district, state, taluk legal services authority in the state need to ensure that every police station is visited in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening by a duty counsel whose name and mobile number is put at the compound wall of the police station. So that if anybody has a complaint, he can walk into the police station to see if somebody is illegally detained or being tortured. And if that is the fact, then it is business to go and complain to the police or to the legal services authority to take up the case. Last part in 2 minutes and then I'm over. What have you to do? Never remain silent. Never. If you have heard about a case of torture, open the portal of the government of Tamil Nadu's police department. Go to the complaint section, register a complaint online and set the law in motion. Whatever you have heard, set the law in motion. You hear about a case of torture in the newspaper, don't read the newspaper in your toilets and then forget about it. Go back, take that article, send a complaint to the State Human Rights Commission or the National Human Rights Commission and say, it is my duty to bring this to your attention. And we hope that you will do your duty of taking this complaint on file and ensuring that notice is issued and necessary action and law taken. Send it to the NHRC. Send it to the NCW if it is also a woman. Send it to the NCPCR if it is a child as well. Send it to the National SC Commission if it is a Dalit also, or the ST Commission if it is an Adivasi. Don't remain silent. Never remain silent. Join such joint action councils and assist as a doctor, as a forensic, as a psychologist, as a lawyer, as a translator. The movement needs you. And that is how custodial torture can be fought. Custodial torture cannot be allowed in a country that is democratic in nature. And let us resolve. The one way that we can pay homage to Jairaj and Benix is that we will fight torture throughout this country, but in particular in my state, And in particular, we will start from my district, my taluk, my block, my village, and ensure that every case is brought to our attention. I will stop here. I'll wait for questions and then we'll proceed. Thank you.
So thank you so much, sir. It was very much impactful and very much influential. We already have a lot of questions. I'll sort it out and I'll compile it and I'll put it up to you, sir. First, many people are asking about the role of NHRC. Like they are saying that it doesn't even take complaints from most renowned persons like you. How will it take a complaint from a normal common citizen? And if there are many cases, so much like you're saying in millions, then what does it exactly the NHRC has been doing all this while?
Well, let me be very, very honest. I cited an example of the Tuticorin case where they refused to take a complaint from me. But please don't use that against the NHRC. NHRC is your institution as much as it is mine. The NHRC is in bad leadership at the moment. But the NHRC will not change if you and I do not challenge it. Because the NHRC doesn't belong to its chairman, the NHRC belongs to the people of this country. I have paid a price for all I have done to criticize that institution. My bank accounts are closed for almost 2,100 days now. Note it, 2,100 days from the year 2012 because of challenging that institution. But my challenge has not reduced one bit. It will not. Because the NHRC doesn't belong to the people who sit down there. It belongs to you and me. Because of the hue and cry in this case, the NHRC immediately took on file the complaint of the member of the Tuticorin parliamentary constituency, Honorable Kanimuri. I know that will go into the waste paper basket. I'll tell you why. The very next day, the State Human Rights Commission has already taken it on file. And with the State Human Rights Commission already taking it on file, the NHRC's jurisdiction to continue to handle this case has been thwarted. So friends, let's continue to put pressure on the NHRC. And the more pressure we put on the NHRC, things will change. That is human rights.
Okay, sir.
I fight them every day, but they know they have to engage with me. And it is not a matter of pride at all, not a matter of ego at all. Please, fighting is different from ego. So be hopeful, because the institution belongs to you and to me. But our collective fight will change that institution.
Thank you, sir. That's another question. So, two people have said like there's already corruption and negligence is running in the veins of the government bodies. Laws are not being implemented. So in this culture, what is the remedy? I'd like to add one of my questions also into this, my personal question. Like the whole police system, police bodies in the separate states. For example, the violence in the Jamia University in Delhi, the masked violence violators has not been arrested. Not even single arrest has been made till date. It's been months. When the police couldn't take action in those cases, it is being used only to the middle class people. Crimes against them only used to torture them. So why such a body? Let's reduce the funding of such body. Why is it still existing then?
I mean, unfortunately, I will have to answer the same answer prevails here. All that you said about Jamia is 100% true. But I have to expose this NHRC. This NHRC functions internationally on an accreditation it enjoys, which is known as an A-grade accreditation. Now, all these facts, my dear friends, that you are asking me are excellent questions. But these are the questions where all of us will have to join together and ensure that their accreditation as an A-grade institution under the Paris principles is thrown out and they are then brought down in their levels. That is a shame. That is the activity we all have to engage and do. And that is what will put pressure on that institution. So I'm only saying, I feel happy that you are raising these questions. Don't lose hope. Let us join together and in our fight against the NHRC, join us. We have formed a platform called the All India Network of Individuals and NGOs working with national and state human rights institutions. Let us do that. On the contrary, dear friends, I'm sometimes very pained to see social work professors who like to be soft on these institutions. It doesn't mean that because you're a social worker, you need to be soft on institutions. You have to be hard on institutions, whether they are on a women's commission or a children's commission. That is the metal in you. Questions are very good. Answers are in joint actions. And let us do that. And let us ensure that the vacancy in the State Commission for Children in Tamil Nadu doesn't once again go to an IAS officer. There is a present vacancy of the chairperson. Tamil Nadu doesn't have a children's commission today, in spite of what happened in Pudukkottai district. Let us ensure that our joint action will ensure that no more corrupt IAS officers come as chairperson of the NCPCR. We have full-time members. Full-time members. I'm asking you, why should Dr. Miriam not become a member of the SCPCR in Tamil Nadu? Full-time. What is wrong? What is it that she doesn't have? You understand what I'm saying? That is what we should all move towards. And for this, we need to be hopeful. We need to work collectively.
So another case related to it. In case of forming a police complaint authority, what should be the composition of the panelists comprising this authority in order to remain unbiased and public friendly?
What is the body that Madras Christian College will have to constitute for complaints from the Madras School of Social Work, from the MCC's Department of Social Work? Supposing Madras Christian College is following a grievance committee only for postgraduate students of social work department. What are the minimum standards that you will want?
There should be someone outside from the department.
Minimum. Do you feel these, I'm sorry for using these words, but sometimes you have to use them. These idiots in government don't know that? The Supreme Court has said that the state complaints authority that you organize should have at the state level a former High Court judge and people from different walks of life. Unfortunately, the only walks of life they know are IAS, IPS. But not even that. The district complaints authority today are the collector and the SP. Your complaint is against the SP. Yeah? This is what the Supreme Court said. Have a district judge and other independent members. But they have replaced it with a collector and an SP. And the third thing that the Supreme Court said is these recommendations are mandatory. And these people are saying it is recommendatory. Serious. So how can you ensure that there are no complaints against the police in the state? There is something basic. And that is why I said, follow the Supreme Court order of 2006 recommendations in Prakash Singh's case. And yours is the sixth recommendation that you are referring to in this question. And thank you very much for that question. But this needs a movement, my dear friends. This doesn't need a seminar. This doesn't need a webinar. It needs a movement. change cannot be brought by courts alone. The D.K. Basu judgment, which gives you the 11 commandments, is in 1996. The Prakash Singh case, which tells the state what you have to do to ensure that you have a good police, is 2006. And we are in 2020 with Sattankulam case. Friends, join the joint action against custodial torture. Contribute. Stand in solidarity. You will see change happening like this.
Okay,
Yes.
sir. Next question. What is the exact role of Friends of Police in general?
I feel very embarrassed to answer this question. Sometimes there are still some honest policemen. There are very few honest policemen in Tamil Nadu. And among the senior ranks, there are very few. And one is, of course, this Pradeep Philip. And if I go into his antecedents, maybe he will also say I'm an MCC product. I don't know. Most probably he is. In every very good intention, this gentleman started the Friends of Police. There's nothing wrong. But he started it in the year 1993, my friends, don't forget. When D.K. Basu judgment wasn't there, when Prakash Singh case judgment wasn't there. And the idea was that policemen need to share their power. These are the words, you go to the website of the Friends of Police. For sharing power of the police with democratic society is exactly the words that they use. So he agrees there is power with the police. And he says that power needs to be shared with citizens. And the vehicle of transferring or this sharing of power is through the Friends of Police. That was a noble intention. Very noble intention. And what has happened? I am nobody who says police don't need volunteers. Police need volunteers. I'm sure your head of the department will remember. I remember very well. When I was in school, I did patrolling on the street, traffic patrolling on the street. The guidelines, look left, look right, look left, and then cross the road, was taught to us in classroom, and we had duties on the street as students in school. Today, our students come to school on two-wheelers. Half our traffic accidents would reduce if our students continued to learn traffic rules in school and then were employed by the police in traffic regulation around my campuses. You understand what I'm saying? You may call them Friends of Police, but they are definitely helping in traffic regulation. We need it. So I don't want to say we don't need. We need community policing. We need traffic wardens like this. We need more home guards. But we need a new police act, which will all bring this, my dear friends, into the police act. Everything has to be done under law. Home guards have a Home Guard Act of 1963. Home guards have a Home Guard rules of 1963. Anybody cannot just put on his pants and put on brown pant and brown shirt and then become a policeman. I used to do training program. I continue to do training programs on law. And once I had to teach people what the police was. And I remember doing it in Madurai. I caught hold of one of my friends and said, you come dressed as a cop. So he went to the Madurai Corporation, caught hold of some of these constables who have all their clothes there and they are resting there, borrowed it from him, put it on, and he came to my training program. And then as he entered, I made sure that all the participants saw him entering the office. I was doing this training in another place. And then he just came in and said, sir, I've got some information. I need to meet all these participants who are getting trained from you. I had already whispered to him privately which of the participants he should pick up. So he just picked up 1, 2, 3 and said, I'm taking them for an inquiry. My dear friends, remember, they got a shock of their lives. The women in the participants were much more firm than the men. And then after 2 hours or 1.5 hours, all the three of them came. Two joined, one refused and went and he said upstairs, "Nenju vali vandiruchu, sir." Then I told them it was a joke. Yeah, it was just a part of the exercise. They refused to believe. The women laughed it out. The men did not. That is the power of the police. That is the power of the khaki. Don't forget. So it's very important that we need bodies like this to interact, but it has to be done under law. Please amend that is exactly what we're telling the state. I told them in an afternoon program today. Amend the Police Act, change the Police Act from the beginning till the end and incorporate all these changes. But if you allow friends of police, there are other bodies which will come and take over the police. That is the fear that people have about Seva Bharati. And that is why the name Seva Bharati is coming into the picture. And criminals like the inspector of Sattankulam and others, and there are many other criminals like this in khaki, will use these people for illegal purposes. That is what we are frightened.
Yes, sir. Next question. In cases like Kasi cheating women and police are handling him in a royal manner, political parties are using police as puppets. And should we see in another manner that caste is also playing a role here? I'd like to add a point also, sir. Political parties, even in these issues, they simply say, let's not politicize it. But the people who rule are actually from political parties. So they actually have a lot of influence over these bodies. So inclusive of caste also. So the question is, what does it happen?
No. Let me appreciate this question again, as I do for all your questions. Caste has a very important role in policing today. And social work departments like you, sociology departments like you, need perhaps to take research studies on the composition of different castes in the police force. And if you see in the southern districts, you will find certain castes are in larger numbers represented in the southern districts. There are certain castes represented in larger numbers in the northern districts. And other castes are ensured that they are kept in minorities in those districts. And because we are a caste society, and caste is so much ingrained to our nerves, it is therefore reflected in all their actions. Casteism is part and parcel of police today. There's no doubt about it. But about the interference of the policemen, I mean, no nonsense. The chief minister had no business to say what he said. The chief minister is not only a chief minister in this case, he's also the home minister. Where was his information that somebody died out of heart attack? Of course, everybody's final cause of death is that the heart stops beating. But there should be some basis. The chief minister spoke only to convey a meaning that others should not interfere. That is politicization. You are that other scientific minister. We have one scientific minister in Madurai. He should be Minister for Science. You all know. The next Minister for Science and Technology comes from the ADMK party from Madurai, Mr. Sellur Raju. You have now the Kadambur Raju, who is now jurist, who says this death did not take place in lockup. Who are you to talk? The matter is being investigated. The matter is being investigated by a magistrate. Shut your mouth. That is what the law mandates you. The law tells you, shut your mouth. If people come, you should say there is a process of inquiry going. Don't ask me a question. That is an honest minister, honest chief minister. These are people who are interfering in the path of justice at every stage. And that is wrong.
So next question. Can justice be served in a capitalist society?
Now, friends, let's be clear. A capitalist society needs to show that it is a just society. Otherwise, capitalism will not run. I don't say we are in a capitalist society today. We are in a different society. But because your question is posed that way, I want to also answer the same way. The capitalist society that you are talking about definitely needs to prove to its society members that justice delivery works. So it will have to work. It is not that it will not work or should not work. It will work. The laws would be tilted in favor of certain people. That's a different question. But it will work. As a judiciary, it will work. It should work. But we don't have a system like that, even minimum here. That is our problem.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Recently, in an interview, former police officer Mr. Karunanidhi said those police officials who were involved in these issues have not properly trained in police academy. Your comments on that?
Poor Mr. Karunanidhi. Karunanidhi, my friend. I mean, these TV channels always make our the panelists opponents for life. They have put Karunanidhi and me too often, and as a result, I've had lots of fights with Karunanidhi on the screen. But he's a nice man. He's a nice gentleman. Mr. Karunanidhi has to say something here. What else do you expect him to say? He has to say that these people did wrong. He cannot start by saying that. So don't take TV shows and their answers in TV shows very seriously. Yes, the trainings are not sufficient. That part of it, let me come to that part of it. The trainings in the police academies are not that sufficient. Because they don't inculcate in them a culture of human rights. And therefore, what is inculcated in them? How to escape from human rights. And the human rights kara vanda, under human rights kara, I don't know who that Karan is. Ava vanda, avanradhu eppadi thappikirathu is what they are taught. They are not taught to nurture, develop and respect human rights. Appadi panna police station போகும்போது என்ன சொல்லுவாங்க? வாங்க, என்ன சமாச்சாரம், என்ன வேணும்னு கேட்பாங்க. Hey, that will not come. There's a long way to go. A long way to go. But those long journeys are started by efforts like what you are taking. I want to tell you all something, friends. 20 years ago, in the year 2000, Prince referred to 2000. 2000, we started a campaign against torture to observe around the 26th of June, which is the International Day or the UN Day of Solidarity with Victims of Torture. We started it as a 1-week program, then we started a 2-week program, a 3-week program, then the 1 month observing of the UN Convention of Solidarity, of a day of solidarity with victims of torture. And this lady constable, women head constable Revati, I am informed now, also participated in that campaign against torture 20 years ago as a young woman. Friends, you understand? Is there some sign of hope? I'm sure this is a better sign of hope than what exists elsewhere. That lady who went on the street and campaigned against torture and asked for a torture law in this country and asked for the UN ratification of torture with a cultural troop coming to the village, etc. 20 years ago, today had the courage to speak up when torture took up in her police station, to speak up and have a husband, marry a husband who supports her and give birth to a daughter who tells her mother, Amma, dhairiyama irungamma, unmai mattum pesungamma. This is hope, my dear friends. Let us draw hope from Revati. Revati is not an ordinary women head constable. Revati is a human rights trained women head constable. This training she never got from a training college. She got it on the streets and we gave it to her. I am proud of it. That is the training that they need. Unfortunately, Karunanidhi doesn't know those trainings. You and I know those trainings. And we will continue to do those trainings.
Thank you, sir. One last question. So, Can we expect the current pace and honesty to continue with the change of Justice Prakash?
Friends, there's a big suspicion here that Justice Prakash was taken off, Justice Pugarendi was taken off, that such a Justice Satyanarayanan has been brought in. Please, you all trust me. This has got nothing to do with anything else. This is a routine transfer of all judges that takes place. We sometimes look forward to such changes. Judges are human beings. Every judge has a perspective. Justice Prakash and Justice Pugarendi did a very good job in the context in which facts on the ground were slapped on their face. Let me use these words very respectfully. And the facts on the ground were that they saw the first postmortem. They saw it. They saw it. And they got a report from Magistrate Bharati Dasan of the utter misbehavior, criminal acts of an additional superintendent of police, a DSP and a constable when a magistrate went to inquire. These two put together paved the way for the case. But don't forget, my dear brothers and sisters, that you and I were fighting on the street simultaneously. You and I were raising our voice outside. What happens is court is determined by what happens on the streets. If our streets are active, our courts will reflect to a certain extent. The Supreme Court was not active in the month of March on migrants. Was not active in month of May on migrants. There was protest. Senior advocates of the Supreme Court wrote an open letter. Go to the wire and you'll get a copy of that letter. Open. Senior advocates from Mumbai and Delhi. And in June, the Supreme Court took the issue of migrant laborers suo moto. You understand? So it was what the pressure on society that forced the court to take it. So let us do what our conscience mandates us to do. Justice Satyanarayanan J, before whom it is, will take up the case on the 9th. And I'm sure we will all be there. We will do what has to be done. He will do what has to be done. But you and I, what we have to do outside and on the streets, we have to do much, much better. That is going to determine the course of action. The judges have to feel that if they don't monitor, there is a people's committee monitoring. And that is what needs to be done. And the last word, social workers, students and friends. Please don't forget that Benix was a student of social work. He had completed his MSW. Your guarantee of an MSW is no guarantee against police torture. He studied in a college in Pollachi. Of course, he didn't get into CSR activities, etc. But he's a student of social work, and you are all students of social work or products of social work. So wherever you are, your MSW is no vaccine against torture. You can be beaten as badly or more than Benix. And if you don't want it to happen to yourself, be part of the movement that speaks against torture. That is what is important. Make sure that you are a social worker with a difference. A social worker who will speak. A social worker who will not remain silent. A social worker who will not want to only please higher police officials and higher IAS officers. You will be a social worker or a professor, or a teacher with a difference. It is difficult, but I'm sure you will do it. And that is what your social work department is and what it has been nurturing all these years as far I've seen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll move on to the next part of the seminar. We'll have a feedback from Ms. Jennifer from Stella Maris.
Good evening, all. Thank you, sir, and thanks to NCC Social Work Department for bringing up this webinar, which is the need of the hour. Sir, you handled this session in a well-staged manner where we could understand in depth the torture faced by the victims, the family, and all the attempts that the family has made in order for the justice of Jairaj and Phoenix. We've clearly understood the various aspects that have been in this case, and thanks to you, with all hope, I think as social workers with difference and as citizens, we all would work towards bringing up a recent act for justice to happen. Thank you, sir, and thanks to NCC Social Work Department.
Thank you, thank you. Now we have Mr. Solomon Raja, who will brief us about the survey which is related to police brutalities and torture.
Yes, am I audible, Vince?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank our instigator, human rights defender, our Henri sir, for accepting our invite and to deliver this effective lecture. My dear friends, the session doesn't end with this discussion alone. We are going to document the whole session and recording all your opinions and support to restrain custodial torture and deaths through a survey which we sent in the chat box. Consolidating all these opinions, we are planning to send the statistical report along with the demands to the respective Tamil Nadu government, Tamil Nadu Police Department, and also National Human Rights Commission to get justice. This is not only for Benix and Jairaj, it is for all the families and friends who need justice for custodial torture and deaths. So I request you all to fill the survey form, which is anonymous. And also I like to share one more thing. Last week we had a webinar on the caste arrogant killings based on Udumalapet honor killing case judgment. And now we are discussing about the Sattankulam issue. On the other side, migrant workers walking miles and dying for hunger and poverty. And the other side, a boiler explosion in NLC oil company where workers' families are fighting there for justice. And on the other side, if you see, a girl child has been sexually abused and killed. These horrific incidents are not new, but this brutality is getting worse day by day. Friends, injustice is everywhere. We are also placed everywhere to speak and fight for justice. I'll finish with a quote. As a student, as a citizen, as a human, always be capable of feeling deeply any injustice committed against anyone, anywhere in the world. This is a beautiful quality in revolutionary, which is quoted by Che Guevara. We need human rights defenders and we need you all for the support. Sorry for making a large note. Finally, I'll remind you all again to fill the survey, which will help us to work effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Solomon. I now call upon Dr. Prince Anadure to deliver the vote of thanks in this webinar.
Good evening, all of you who participated in this very important discussion. Good evening, sir. So much to have you with us on this evening. As you rightly said, this is not a happy occasion. This is not a happy day. It's not a pleasant topic to discuss about the demise of Benix and his father due to this torture and custodial death. Nevertheless, and though they lost their life, they have given us an important issue to discuss and deliberate on how we are going to stop such issues in the days to come as social workers and other development workers. No discipline talks about the inherent worth and dignity of human being than social work. There are only two institutions. One is social work, and the second is the Holy Bible, which talks about the inherent and dignity of the human being, the worth of the human being. Probably this should be a topic of training, an important topic of training to all the lawmakers and even to the police officers, the inherent worth and the dignity of human being. So we need to learn a lot. The profession which is deeply rooted in the value of a human being, the human life. Now we are discussing and deliberating about it, and truly, I believe such discussions and your inputs, your scintillating information that will help us to prevent such custodial deaths and torture in the days to come. Benix, he did his MSW from Sri Tyagaraja, Saraswati Tyagaraja College from Pollachi, which is my hometown. As a young budding social worker, probably he would have attended many training programs or somewhere related to the custodial deaths or torture or human rights. Even as you rightly said that, we are not vaccinated against such tortures and deaths, even though we are social workers. So that is the reality of the situation. So we need to keep it in mind. So we lost a very important budding social worker, and we are not above such tortures and deaths, and we need to be mindful about it. Thank you so much for your inputs in this regard. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers, especially my student friends, Kavita and Solomon Raja, for your wonderful anchoring, and as well as Danny. Even though we miss you all guys in the department, and through these webinars, we are able to organize such programs. We are really thankful to you. More than 180 participants across the country, they have participated in this program. And we are also reminded of one verse from Bible, since you quoted from Bible, and also about the dignity and worth of human being. Matthew chapter 24:12, it says that because of the increase of the wickedness, the love of the most will be lost in the days to come. So there is a state of lawlessness. These are all probably we need to understand from biblical perspective or spiritual perspective, the signs of the end days. Nevertheless, apart from the spirituality, that might not be applicable to all who participated, but as social workers, as it was rightly discussed and provoked, that we need to raise our voice. And sir, your information about Revati was very informative. If at all I am in a position to give an award to an important personality on Women's Day, International Women's Day, probably from my department, from my college, I would very strongly recommend and judge Revati for this particular award. Though she was a participant on street a couple of years ago, now she was able to practice what she has gained about human rights. Such training and gaining of information about human rights is very important. That's what Madras Christian College Department of Social Work is doing it. And as a department, we always cherish your long-lasting friendship and how you have influenced so many young budding social workers, not only in social work department of Madras Christian College, across the country. So we are really blessed to have you in our midst on this particular day. And as a friend of Madras Christian College Department of Social Work, sir, may God give you a life and God give you the wisdom and strength so that you can be a source of blessing to many social workers. And also to this country, which needs people like you. So I pray and bless you. God will give you His protection and His knowledge so that you will be a beacon of light to many people, sir. So we wish you and bless you from the Department of Social Work. God bless you, sir. On behalf of the department, this is very close to my heart, and as it was suggested by Sudarshan, also Professor Sudarshan, all the participants, I kindly request you to spend 10 seconds in silence as a mark of respect to Benix, because he is our brother. We lost him. So I kindly request you to spend 10 seconds in silence as a mark of respect to our beloved Benix. Thank you so much, sir. Once again, on behalf of the Department of Social Work, we thank all the participants and the resource person and all the people, those who technically supported on your teamwork, which made this day a meaningful day in our lives as social workers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Participants, I again remind you to please fill the feedback form as well as the special survey on the custodial torture and death, which has been sent in the chat box. So please do fill in, and your opinion is important. And we should not just stop here, it should continue. So please do participate and fill the forms which has been put out. And I thank all the participants for participating, and once again thank our speaker, Henri sir. Thank you so much, sir, for spending a valuable time with us. Thank you, sir.